So, what I'm going to speak about with you today is a way of knowledge, spiritual knowledge. The Greek word is gnosis. That's the word that St. Paul uses in the letters. It's a form of knowledge that isn't highly regarded or very well understood in our culture at all, nor in our education system. Because you can't measure it, you can't evaluate it, and yet this kind of knowledge is perhaps the most important knowledge that we can have for our human development and for our well-being. It's a knowledge, a spiritual knowledge, of course, that arises from a deep place within ourselves, deeper than thought, deeper than words, and deeper than imagination. And yet, as it arises in us, it transforms our thoughts, our minds, our emotions, our relationships. In fact, it touches and transforms everything that we are. And this is prayer. This is the prayer of the heart. This is the prayer that St. Paul was talking about in that reading. We do not know how to pray, but the Spirit prays within us, deeper than words. This way of knowledge, this experience of knowledge, and experience is the key word I'd like to ask you to reflect on, has been around for a long time. From that, one of the key phrases I'd like to share with you today comes from that early monastic tradition, and John Cassian, the teacher of St. Benedict, who said, "Magistra experientia." Experience is the teacher. Fundamental insight into the nature of prayer, and indeed into the whole area of spiritual knowledge that I was talking about at the beginning. I think we live in a culture and an age where there is a strong, dangerous cognitive dissonance between faith and belief. This is expressed, of course, in popular terms when we talk about the difference between religion and spirituality. And more people are associating themselves with spirituality and distancing themselves from organized religion or belief systems. And I think this is a false dichotomy. It's unsustainable in the end. And we have to find a way to reintegrate religion and spirituality, faith and belief. I might talk a little bit more about that later, but I wrote a book about it 2 years ago, which I'm not promoting because it's not on the table, called First Sight, the experience of faith. But basically I would say this: faith is our capacity for commitment, for relationship. And that's why we speak about faithful marriages, faithful friendships, a faithful commitment to something. And because it is about commitment, it also opens us up to transcendence. Because when you commit yourself to something and you stick with it as best you can, none of us perfectly faithful, but you stick with something as well as you can, you then transcend your own ego, the ego that says, this is not what I signed up for, I'm not enjoying this, let's try something different. We transcend the ego and the ego's desire for pleasure and its aversion to suffering. We transcend the ego, and then what happens? We discover our capacity for love. And this is part of human development. We can't develop as human beings without this experience of faith, the capacity for relationship. That's what you're trying to help your children and your students to do. To grow up, make relationships, be faithful, find their way in life, make commitments and grow. Now, there's nothing new in this. This goes back to St. Irenaeus in the 2nd century. He said, the beginning is faith and the end is love. And the union of the two is, what do you think? The beginning is faith, the end is love, and the union of the two is, wow, deafening. Hope. Yeah, well that would be neat, but it's not, I'm sure it's true, but it's not what he said. Huh? God? Yes, exactly. The beginning is faith, the end is love, and the union of the two is God. One of the things that the contemplative experience will do is to change, deepen, and expand our understanding of God. And the image of God will be set free within us. Now, we need belief as well. Belief, everyone has some kind of belief system. Even if you say you don't believe in anything, you believe in something. And our belief system is composed of symbols and values and principles, which are very important for us when we have difficult decisions to make, and we face many difficult ethical decisions today in our lives, and in society. So we need a belief system. But the belief system needs to be related to the experience of faith. Because otherwise what happens, the belief system gets separated from experience and it becomes an ideology. It becomes a fanaticism. We worship the words, the doctrines, the formulas, but they are disconnected from anything that touches our own personal and inner experience or development. One of the three temptations that the Pope identified soon after he became Pope, that the Church faces, he said, first of all, is to treat the gospel as if it were an ideology. Secondly, to run the church as if it were a multinational corporation. And thirdly, clericalism. So, reconnecting faith and belief, religion and spirituality, that seems to me today to be the central challenge for the church for itself, its own health, its own growth, and for its relationship to the world. And what bridges what has become a split in our culture, we have this split between faith and belief. There are a lot of people who are spiritual and want experience, but are totally disconnected from any kind of belief system. So what reconnects that, and I've seen this with young people and as well as with older people, but particularly with young people, is experience. That experience of silence that we enter into through meditation.